30, 40 years ago, women weren't in the workplace near as much, and I'm just convinced that one of the real problems with women being in the workplace is just the increased likelihood of an affair. I know what I look like when I roll out of bed in the morning. I don't look real great. My wife looks better than I do, but I've seen her look better than she does at that time of day. But a few hours later, I'm Mr. Executive. And compared to my secretary probably thinks I'm a pretty great guy. You know, I have more money than she does. I look good and smell right when I walk in there, and I probably treat her better than we treat our family at times. And I just think there's an increased likelihood for an affair when you get the women out in the workplace.
One time I hired a gal to work for me that was kind of cute and all that, and my wife wandered in, and boy, she was not in my place long, the gal. My wife let me know that would not work. One time a fella called me up and he says, "Boy, Kirk," he says, "I'm really bothered." He says, "We needed to hire a secretary, and you know, we hired this gal, and a lot of times my brother's out of the office and it's just her and me here, and I can't believe the thoughts I'm having about her." And I called him by name, and I said, "Didn't I tell you, you don't hire young, good-looking secretaries?" He goes, "Really?" And the next day he called me up and said, "Well, I did it." And I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "I fired her." You know? I had a friend call me up one day, and he said, "You know, Kirk, I just don't know what I'm having impure thoughts, and there's this girl I hired, and she's this beautiful blonde, and this secretary, and we're in this office, and a lot of times it's just her and me in here, and I'm finding myself thinking things I just can't believe I'm thinking." I said, "Didn't I tell you?" I said, "You don't hire good-looking secretaries." And so about 2 weeks later, he called me up. He says, "I did it." I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "I fired her." I said, And then he ran an ad, and he hired another one. I happen to know the girl, and she qualifies as a safe secretary. A friend of mine called me one time, Bill. Chip, you know Bill, my friend Bill. You know what I'm talking about? He called me and he said, "I'm having some problems." I said, "What's your problem, Bill?" He said, "Well, I'm having problems with my thought life." I said, "Well, that's not good." And he said, "You know, I hired this secretary, and she's good looking. And sometimes my brother leaves the office and it's just her and me, and I'm having some really terrible thoughts about her." And I said, "Well, Bill, did I not tell you?" And he said, "Tell me what?" I said, "You don't hire good-looking secretaries." "You don't?" I said, "No." I said, "You know, you hire them old or ugly." And so, now my secretary, let me issue a disclaimer. My secretary is a sweet gal. And Brad, this needs to be edited out of the tape. But my secretary is a sweet gal, but I can honestly say she's not the type that would tempt me sexually. So about a week later, Bill calls me and says, "Well, I did it." I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "I fired her." I said, I didn't tell you to do that. But anyway, so I helped him figure out how to hire another one, and he called me a few weeks later, and he said, "Well, this lady has applied for a job as secretary, and she says you know her." He said, "I believe she'd qualify," and he told me who it was, and she did. But you know, we can keep ourselves out of a lot of trouble if we just set ourselves up in the right way.